Welcome to MOTS, where we'll be applying the Manzer or Mosley Thurlow scale of quantitative analysis of pop culture narrative through a binary system.
Or MOTS. This podcast contains spoilers, mature content, and language. Viewer discretion advised.
Merry Christmas, motherfuckers, and welcome to our holiday edition of MOTS, in which we have chosen a Christmas themed film, which is, for this year, Santa's Sleigh. Some of you may have heard or seen this film, and if not, you're in for a treat.
A classic.
Because we certainly were. I'm Scott Thurlow, of course, as always, here with Jonathan Manzer.
Ho, ho, ho.
Rich Perry.
How's it going?
And Stephen Amosi.
Hey,
All right, so I will get the funny logline for Santa's Sleigh. I cannot do better than the actual little one single sentence synopsis that we watch it on, which runs something similar to, it turns out that the Santa is not the jolly old fellow that we all know and love. In fact, he's quite the opposite.
or the origin of curling.
Yeah, sure. As an alternate one, which is pretty good, and you'll see why. So, we'll go to E with actual synopsis of the film.
So this is in the genre of horror comedy, although I would actually reverse those and say this is a comedy movie with horror elements to it. Basically, Santa Claus, played by Goldberg of WWE fame, whatever. He is Santa Claus, who is actually the son of Satan, and has been, due to a bet from curling 1,000 years ago, has been forced to be good and nice to children. Now the deal is done, and he can return to his evil self and revenge against the world for all of the kindness he had to show for the past 1,000 of years. And I think that's really sums up, it's just a slaughter, a movie making fun, interesting deaths, and that's what you're here for.
Kind of seems like an anthem for mall Santas.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe it's the rallying cry.
It's also somewhat as though Santa Claus is in the Sons of Anarchy.
Yes.
Kind of, sure.
I just want to make it for actually Steve-O, because we were discussing the idea of how we rate films. I'm rating this film as not I'm probably going to give this a pretty high score just off the top of my head, but I just want to make a caveat here that I'm rating it for what it is, and for what's intent
within
is.
its limits.
And
sure.
it will go into why I feel that it's in what it went in trying to do. It succeeded at immensely. But I just want to say, so it's not a Citizen Kane level film, even if our score reflects like that. It's viewed through. This is a perfect B movie.
Sure, it's almost like the Scream of Christmas time movies. I guess I might chosen as log line,
But it doesn't even have as high aspirations as Scream did.
Sure, yeah, right.
Let's say.
You're right. Like you said, it knows what it is and it has fun with it and plays just to that and doesn't try to be anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I will go into the intro. So we open on a sort of not dysfunctional family, but a very
Dysfunctional family.
All right, fine.
Very
Dysfunctional is
dysfunctional.
good enough then. Played by a cast of sort of random B-ish level, maybe C-level celebs, like Fran Drescher is there, Chris Kattan, a bunch of people. And
James Caan is there.
Yes, James Caan, right?
James Caan.
True. Who's there for a minute. And it's a cold open, essentially, where they're sitting around having Christmas dinner.
Being terrible
and
to each
everyone's
other.
being an asshole to each other, yeah. They're basically like spoiled rich people. And then they hear a little noise from the chimney. The fire goes out, and Goldberg literally busts through the fucking wall and just starts murdering them all.
Kool-Aid Man style.
Yeah, exactly. It's
a
a
fireplace to be.
Sorry, yes. It's a wrestling open, if you think about it, obviously, which makes sense. And yeah, he just starts murdering them in various ways, like creatively for sure. And that's pretty now you know that Santa is evil. And actually, I think I'll count the opening credits, if you will, because they basically do it like a storybook style where you see what he just said, the history of who Santa really is and what happened, and now it's time for him to come back and fucking kill everybody. So
yeah, and there's this whole book that is in Norse with random credits sprinkled into it as well.
Exactly.
Which was kind of interesting. So I watched this movie for the first time maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and I haven't seen it since then.
Not the same for me, yeah.
But I absolutely loved it the first time I saw it, and this opening scene is really the only thing that I remembered in any kind of detail. But so I remember this. I remember the opening scene being the funniest thing in the movie. I'm not sure it was anymore, but it was still pretty damn hilarious.
It's up there. It's a great opening for sure.
So I don't want to particularly ruin any of the deaths because that's what you're here for, the surprise. But I just want to discuss his opening move, which is he busts through and there's a little yappy dog, and he basically
punts it
punts
away.
the dog
Yeah.
into
Onto
the
the
fan, and then it ricochets back into the destroyed fireplace, and it sets the tone for this
I just
movie.
love
The
that.
entire
I love that last second dodge that he does to move out of the way of the dog.
Again, it's like a wrestling move. It's perfect though. Like there's little touches like that spread throughout. But yeah, I mean that's what happens. So Rich hadn't seen this movie before. The three of us had, and I remember like you watched that and we're so cracking up. And I was like, well, that's what you're in for. That's what this movie is going to be. And I think the intro,
And the rest of the movie did not disappoint.
yeah, exactly. Like the intro sets up what you're about to see in a great way. And it's just, like you said, Zero, yeah, it's funny. Quickly, like we were talking precast that I remember things from this movie. I didn't remember the intro, or I said I didn't. And then as soon as it started happening, like, oh yeah, I fucking remember this 100%. And yeah, it's great. Again, for what it is, it's, if you came in this without any other context, it's just so fucking ridiculous in the best way. So I'm going to give it a 1.
See, it's a very actually dangerous opening move by the movie.
It's a
because
ballsy
it
one.
sets the bar so high for what it.
Yeah.
I mean, and a lot of times these kind of horror comedies, the joke will run out about halfway through,
Sure.
or they'll run
stretched
out of
in.
ideas. And this one, so it pulls out it pulls out all the stops for the opening, and for the most part,
And leaves them out.
continues with this, and
Yeah.
I have to give it full credit for being as ballsy as it was.
Yeah.
And I have to give the introduction a 1.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to give it a 1 for sure.
Same here.
All right. That'll bring us to the body of Santa's sleigh. Go ahead, E.
All right, as I already mentioned, I don't want to ruin a lot of because
Sure.
a lot
Very
of this is
clever
like,
Be
kills.
vague about it. Yeah.
it's like seeing like a comedy movie and describing all the great jokes, and I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to give the overall narrative aspect of this. Of course, you have Santa that you've already been introduced to. They're in, I think, Hell, Michigan, is
Yep.
it?
That's
Mhm.
the name of the town that they're in.
So you follow a young boy whose name I don't remember.
Nicholas, obviously.
Yeah, Nicholas. His tough blonde girlfriend, Meg,
Mary.
was it?
Mary.
Mary or Mac.
Or Mac.
She
She
As
goes
he calls
by.
her as. I guess that's her nickname, but anyway, or his nickname for her. Go ahead.
And he and the boys are Nicholas's grandfather, who's known as like the town kook,
Yeah.
and he has many locks on his door and has built a bunker in the basement because he is vaguely connected, as long as the plot goes, with like the history of Santa Claus.
He and Santa have a history, if you
Yes.
will.
He's got and again, not to ruin anything, but he has a terrific gun that you are introduced to fairly early.
a nutcracker gun.
Oh, it's ruined now.
Yeah, that's not a.
That's fine.
It's not a.
You'll see what they do with a nutcracker
Yeah.
gun, that is to say, yeah. Go
And it's actually a pretty pertinent plot point later
Mm.
on for the conclusion. But nonetheless, so Santa comes to town and starts like causing chaos everywhere. Regardless of whether you're naughty or nice, he's out to get you. But he generally picking on people who, in very much like horror movie fashion, who have qualities that deserve being punished in a way, in at least traditional morality.
Again, to keep it vague, he pays a visit to a strip club in town, and you may imagine or see for yourself what happens there. But to what you were saying, yes.
So there's a book, the Book of Santa.
Book of Claws, I believe.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. They actually have a nice little. I thought it was a kind of throwback to the old Rudolph type
Yeah.
claymation
Yes.
story cartoon explaining the whole history of Santa Claus. He made a bet with an angel in curling once
1,000 years ago.
And again, I explained in my synopsis, he has been forced to be good, but now he's on a rampage. Time is up, and he's going after the grandfather and his grandson and his girlfriend. And basically it starts the grandson and the girlfriend are running off trying to escape. And I'm going to say that the ending of the body happens when the grandfather is run over by a reindeer.
Yes, I agree
A
with
hell
that.
deer.
Yes.
Yeah.
That looks like a bison for some reason.
Yeah.
The movie is
They could only afford one prop for reindeer, and that's what it was and looked like that. But I think it was funny.
Honestly,
It's like, we need a reindeer. That's a bison.
that bison,
We'll make it work.
that bison hell deer was pretty fucking awesome looking.
Yeah,
I will give him that.
I thought it was one of the coolest parts of the movie, given for what it is.
I just have one last thing. I gave the driest synopsis of this film of all time. It is
on purpose,
a glorious mess.
There's
In the-
nothing
in the
dry
best way
about the
possible.
body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's just an orgy of puns and bad like horror like bad/good
and over the top
horror
kills.
tropes and super over the top
Creatively
kills.
over the top
Yeah.
kills.
Exactly.
And it's just it's a movie that's like you just want to go have a good time. This is that type of movie, you know, like throughout the entire body, it's just murder after murder, and like it's just this
In a funny way.
Terminator like
Yes.
you know,
they reference
Santa Terminator like chasing the main character Nicholas and Mary, and to a greater or lesser extent his grandfather, which we find out a little bit more about in the conclusion.
But what I like about this film is it has to do its exposition, because it's creating a world with its own set of rules.
Mhm.
But it interrupts the exposition with like a madhouse murder spree
Yes.
that works like, and then they cut from there, like 10 minutes of killing, and right back into the exposition. So like
Sure.
this again, this movie has no illusions of what it's trying to be. It's setting up its rules, but having a lot of fun along the way.
Yeah.
I have to give it, like, it's in a way it's paced well, but I don't know if it's.
I will say this: the movie itself is an hour and 17 minutes long,
Yeah.
so it's not like
That's
it gives it.
The
It's
perfect
not like
length.
it didn't
for
run it out. It didn't run dry in ideas or anything. It had the ideas that it had, and then it ended the movie.
What's
If
that
anything,
movie?
it might have needed like another 10 minutes.
It could have maybe, like, I would have been okay with that happening.
Yeah.
That's for
With
sure.
another like kill scene or something. Yeah.
Sure. Good.
But we saw a movie recently, which was 90 minutes and felt like 85 minutes of filler.
Yeah.
But so I've seen it done poorly.
True.
And this one, again, when I'm saying it's well paced, it's well paced for a movie
Of this nature.
So I'm going to give it a pretty strong 1 for this.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I could say, you guys pretty much said everything, but I'll just add that, yeah, it was entertaining throughout perfectly. And that's all it needed to be. And it was very much so. And I will give it a very solid 1.
Giving it a 1 as well.
All right.
Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna
There wasn't a single moment where I wasn't entertained.
throw one in
exactly.
there as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you want. All right. So,
So,
go ahead. Sorry.
well, I guess I'll save that. I'll save that for later.
Well, it's on to Rich now with conclusion.
So after Grandpa gets run over by the reindeer, there is a Santa Claus chases Nicholas and Mary through a frozen wilderness into the
Yes.
into the woods and then
Over the
through-
river, through the
yeah,
woods.
over the river through the woods and through a skeet shooting arena.
Yes.
They end up hiding in a library where Santa then chases them into a skating rink where
That is
lo and
somehow
be-
attached
yeah,
to it.
Somehow,
It was a school,
was
right?
it was a
You're
school,
Right. It's a high
yeah.
school. You're right. That's right.
because I guess Michigan has hockey rinks in their schools. Makes sense.
Sure.
So then, when Santa shows up trying to kill them with a Zamboni, Grandpa reveals himself to be the angel from the story that originally challenged Santa to the curling match that bound him to niceness for 1,000 years.
It's all awesome. Trust us. Trust us.
Now, is it more ridiculous with me retelling it or watching
No,
it?
no.
It's just as ridiculous.
Yeah, it's the exact amount of ridiculous it needs to be.
Precisely. Right.
So the curling match happens, and of course Santa cheats and just throws Grandpa into the hole, into the abyss, where they then wound him with the Chekhov's nutcracker.
You don't get to say that very often either.
Pull Grandpa out of the abyss, and where he reveals to them that since time has run out and Christmas is over in the North Pole, Santa has no power, so they have to track him down and finish the job. They leave, kill Santa's reindeer, and then vow to.
Hold on. How do they kill Santa's
they kill Santa's reindeer.
This is tough because I want you to say it, but if you haven't seen this movie, it's so fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And out of nowhere. Too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
All right, yeah, perhaps we shouldn't reveal the.
With the help of, how about this? I'll try to.
with the help of Mary's father,
Yes.
and his new Christmas present,
Yes.
given to him by the mute Native American.
Yeah. No, who's that guy from South Park? All right, to be clear, it's an old Native American man who is smoking a
What's his name,
cigarette.
Jim?
Constantly
Ned,
smoking.
maybe?
From South Park. I don't remember what his name is.
He has to speak through a voice box, just
Yeah.
to be clear. That's
Yeah.
what we're talking about. Go ahead, Rich.
So using the Christmas present that he got from him, kills a flying reindeer, where they all like smoke their cigarettes afterwards, and gather around the corpse of the priest, who's been framed for the Santa Claus murders. Where Nicholas and Mary decide to go after Santa Claus and end Christmas for good. And then Santa hops on a plane to the North Pole in his Hell's Angels gear.
Yes.
No. It was his West Coast chopper gear.
Yes, West Coast chopper gear. I'm
Let's be
sorry.
fair. It's not nearly as hardcore as Hell's Angels gear.
Yeah, and that's the end.
Yeah.
The end. He says like one line at the end of the credits, which is not even worth watching. It's
a-
not even worth waiting for.
It's a lesser pun or whatever, but
Although I will say might be the first time that I ever include the credits as a shout out on the conclusion. They do an awesome
true.
naughty or nice for the entire cast and crew.
Yes.
And like some of them are checked off as not like in the cast, it's goes by what they were in the movie, but for the crew, it's like I assume they just picked whether they wanted to be naughty or nice.
Or I
Or it's
assume it's the
randomly
director. No, the director being
Director
a bitch.
just judging them.
Either way, it's a funny gag that that kept
Either way, all of the stunt crew except for maybe one are assholes.
yeah.
And
According
all
to
the
that,
drivers,
yeah, all the drivers.
all the drivers are
Yeah.
naughty.
But no, I mean it's all very amusing. But yeah, it's a funny little nice little touch at the end there, and we enjoyed it. So yeah, I mean again, like in the same way that the intro and the body like entertain you, so does the conclusion. I felt satisfied by it. It's everything it needed to be.
Yes.
Again, for a slasher horror a Christmas time film, I don't know what else to say. It was funny and it all made sense and it wrapped everything up.
It what caught me off guard is like I thought like when they left the ice rink or the hockey rink to go after Santa, they just settled for killing his ride.
Yeah, like, it's good enough.
It was like the most petty thing that the protagonist
Yeah.
could have done.
Since you brought up the Zamboni already, I just want this movie threatened to fall into kind of the standard horror cliche at this point of Santa chasing them through the school.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden he just appears out of nowhere riding a Zamboni.
Jumps on a
And
Zamboni.
Yes, it's a smart move.
Again, yeah, every time this, again, threatens to fall into cliche, it subverts it in the most
Yeah,
spectacular
it has some way to
fashion.
entertain you and keep it fresh, and
Yeah.
for sure. So yeah, I mean,
Like
like
Santa throwing a book at the protagonist and not killing him, just mildly annoying him.
It's like my head really hurts.
yeah, like you've seen that before, but it works perfectly well.
Yeah.
So I'm-
I don't have much to say about the
Yeah, I mean that's
conclusions.
what happens. And
It's- It's good. It's funny. It's it's just like a continuation of what the rest of the movie
exactly.
has been.
Again,
up
this
to
movie does
point.
not waste a single second, and the conclusion is everything that the movie has, led you on to be invested in thus far. So
Yeah,
I would definitely give it a 1.
Yeah, it's,
yeah. I'm gonna give it a 1 as well.
yes, I agree.
Yeah.
You all right there, Rich?
Yeah, I'm just
That's
sorry,
how good
just
this movie is.
Just rethinking this
Yeah,
movie.
exactly. See,
Reliving it.
as you can tell, it's quite enjoyable. But we will be moving on to themes with Steve-O.
All right. So there are themes in this movie.
Really? What are they? Why don't you tell me?
Well, so there's this theme of like I guess respecting the past, like knowing, like understanding your history and that being a your weapon for the future.
Sure. If you say so.
Why you guys?
No, I mean, like, it's just weird because, like, before you go on, Steve, I'm sorry, but the nature of this film means that there's probably not, like, to me, there isn't much thematically there. And whatever is there
course,
is going to be sort of a joke, but
yeah, but like I
Sure.
you take that joke, you have to. There are those themes.
You're
There
right,
are
sure.
themes in there.
That's fair. Go on.
Surely, I don't know. There's the standard like horror, I guess, ish themes of like sticking together, don't go off on your own type thing between the main characters as soon as and like the self-sacrifice of the grandfather in order to prolong his grandson's life, stuff like that. There's nothing like really deep about this movie. Obviously, I'm obviously grasping at straws a little bit here, but I don't think that themes is one of the points that they really wanted to drive home.
Sure.
Although, Ian, I know you had something to say about this. Perhaps, if you still do.
It's not the strongest argument out there because there's not much here, but it is as a comedy, it is satirizing Christmas.
Yeah.
And a lot of the cliches that were whether they're making pun on a Christmas song, whether it's satirizing Christmas, whether it's making puns and kills based on famous Christmas songs or a couple of the kind of stereotypes and traditions. But the issue I have is that I feel it's all surface level kind of humor about it, where like I wouldn't say it's necessarily low hanging fruit describing it as, because I never felt that many, there are a couple of cheap jokes in there, especially at,
Various
ethnicities.
face expense, yes.
Yeah. But generally the satirization of Christmas was very broad, taking on like a whole, like, and the traditional, like, but I don't know if that counts as a strong theme or if it's just kind of a emergent property of what the comedy that they wanted to make.
I think it is the case. So I'll probably just give this a 0. Just again, we've encountered this problem or issue variously, where just because the movie lacks it, it's not a fault of the movie. It just wasn't its intent. So that's, I guess, what I have to say.
Here's one thing that I was intrigued by while I was watching it. Actually, this movie's treatment of Jewish people, which was interesting.
Yeah, as Ian hinted at.
I
Yeah,
guess.
sure.
There were a couple like cheap jokes directed at the Jewish guys on the street.
I think all of them by that one cop.
Yeah, but it was also like really.
It wasn't like offensive. But
I don't think that. Well, no, that's not exactly what I'm getting at.
Okay.
What I'm getting at is like I don't know if the movie was trying to say anything about the interplay of like Christianity and Judaism.
Sure. No.
I think that there was some sort of like a swipe at trying to say a little something about it, but I don't think it actually came off.
Maybe, but all right, maybe this would be in secondary. But they also had a joke at the expense, sort of Christianity, in the sense.
Sure, I don't think that they.
They're not like singling
play favorites
one
or
out.
anything.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not. I never found anything in this mean-spirited.
Right.
If I would say ignorant and lazy at times.
Sure,
but the idea is that even like traditional horror movie elements where they're punishing people who are sinners in a sense, like the loose women or the dumb jock or however you wish to, like whatever. This one, Santa Claus killed people who deserved it and didn't.
Exactly.
yeah.
So I can't, there's not even that morality aspect to it, which is perhaps a commentary on Santa Claus itself, but I doubt it. So I'm going to give it a 0.
I just think there's not enough there.
I'm going to give it a 0 for themes, but I do appreciate that Santa didn't play favorites in this.
Yeah, 0.
Alrighty. So 0s all around, and that will bring me to antagonist. Santa as depicted, like, if you buy into the mythology of him as this movie presents it to you.
This mythology has taken place of any other mythology I had in mind.
It's now,
this is what Santa is now.
Witness. Sure. Like, I mean, and I, of course, as I've probably mentioned various other Christmas casts in years past, I'm not the biggest fan of this holiday either in general, for what it represents. So, like, I like it when movies do something funny with it, or like, something different that's kind of absurd, but is amusing to me.
Sure.
So yeah, so like, sure, you take this setup, Santa is a spawn of Satan, which is like sort of a known thing, like a play on that. And, he made a bet with an angel who gave up his immortality, whatever, all this stuff, like all this mythological backstory.
I did like that Santa was the only other immaculate conception other than Jesus.
Yes. Right. They're evil. He's his evil twin brother, essentially, if you take it that way. And, I mean, his force being, kind, time is now up, and now it's time for him to go back to be doing what his true nature is, which is murdering people in funny ways, amusing ways. I guess. So, I mean, and as portrayed by Goldberg, like, it's a funny casting choice, or it should seem odd, but he somehow pulls it off perfectly because it's all over the top. He's chewing all the scenery all the time.
Oh, he definitely loved this
He
role.
acts
but
he acts like he's in the ring like the entire time.
Of course, like he even does. He's like body slamming people, doing wrestling moves to people. Like, I think he body slams a lady like onto the stairs, like shit like that.
He winks at the camera at one point after he kills people.
Sure.
But to quote what Meg was the girl's name? Mary. To quote Mary, it's like he's terrifying and educational.
Yes. Exactly. I forgot about that line.
So,
but yeah, I mean, it's all very amusing and like, it's a funny portrayal. And I think certainly the townsfolk eventually, soon enough, feel antagonized. I mean, like, bodies are in the street. The cops have to like take away a bunch of bodies.
I don't know if they feel antagonized, more so confused.
That's true, but
the people in the street for sure.
Something in Hell Township is going awry. Something is afoot here.
Mary Mack, as I'll call her, and Nick certainly feel antagonized the entire time. And like, I think they do a good job, as little as you're like really paying attention to these parts. I think they do a very good job building up the epicness of Santa through all the exposition that they do, and like, they're very brief scenes. They cut them up, like, but it makes Santa feel like this epic, weird, fucking absurd character because they have those scenes in it. If they left those scenes out, this would be a very different movie.
So I'm a big horror movie fan. So if I had to compare Goldberg's portrayal of Santa to any other horror character, I'd be saying that it's Jason Voorhees if played, but if it had the personality of Freddy Krueger.
Yes. I like
Very
that a
much
lot.
so.
Yeah.
And that it's kind of a dream to me to see like that combination.
And it works pretty well,
yeah.
for sure. All right, I will say this one.
Wait, he's also got the powers of the leprechaun.
Oh, shit, that's right. Oh, man. Holy Trinity, if you will, of horror. That's amazing. I love that from both of you. That's perfect. I just want to add one more thing. I'll say this, right? Richard said the town people are sort of confused, if not necessarily antagonized by him. But one thing I like is after he does what he does to the strip club, the pastor feels antagonized because he's a hypocritical frequent of it, and now he can't go. Like, his actions fuck with people if it's not like killing them themselves. So anyway, like I love, like, it's over the top, as you said, everything we just said, and I have to give Goldberg a very strong one for portraying an evil Santa like amazingly.
Yes.
Yes.
I completely agree with that. Yeah.
In fact, this movie wouldn't have worked without his portrayal. Of
For
this.
sure. If they cast someone else, like I said, it seems like an odd choice, but at the end of the day, pulled off very well. All right, and that's will bring us to protagonist with E.
All right, so Nicholas and Mary finally got the names down.
Mhm.
I would say that the two of them are the protagonists, though Nicholas kind of carries the more traditional weight of protagonist. Mary is
She's
literally
there.
his better half.
Yes.
Yeah, nice.
She is the most competent person in this film, perhaps besides his
Besides the grandfather, yeah.
And the only reason he's alive is because of her like knowledge and cunning, and
Because she allows it.
yes. And they weren't necessarily the greatest actors, though I didn't mind Mary as an actress.
She was
did a,
certainly better than he was,
yeah,
but
she did a fine job.
Well, he did fine as long as it wasn't anything to do with showing sadness.
yes, that's true. Or other kinds of emotion.
Yeah, anytime he tried to cry.
Love or
or fear. But anyway.
But for the most part, I didn't necessarily buy their relationship.
Neither did she.
Yeah. She didn't, and then she did, but then kind of not. But it's kind of neither here nor there.
But like again, it's what do I want from this movie? I got Goldberg running around as Santa Claus, and I'm not angry at the decisions these characters make, nor necessarily their portrayal. Yeah, it could have been better, but I'm here for Goldberg dressed as Santa Claus, killing people with like candy canes.
I will slightly disagree with you. I think that these characters were written fine. As I said, I believe while the movie was happening, I wish that the guy that played Nick was a better actor. I think as good as Goldberg's casting was, he was that bad. Like in this part, like
He wasn't great,
I did not
sure.
give a shit about this kid. The only thing that saved him was Mary being okay. Like Mary was pretty good, but like you said, I didn't buy their quote unquote relationship, as she kept calling it, even though it seemed nothing like an actual relationship.
Sure.
I think he was just as confused as her.
But they're a couple 16-year-old kids, so who the hell knows what actually constitutes a relationship for them anyway. But I think I'm probably going to give protagonist a 0 on this one, just because it wasn't important. Goldberg is the reason, like you said, Goldberg is the reason that you come to see this movie, and you could have put a fucking, you could have animated a lamp on the fucking screen and had that wander around and do the same lines that he did, and it would be the same fucking thing.
I very much like the fact that Mary seemed to acknowledge that she was in a horror movie, and he was supposed to be the protagonist. So a lot of the times that she had a chance to shine, she would just like kind of shove it off onto him to make him a better protagonist, and he just would not take it.
That's really funny. I mean,
That's actually
It's like he couldn't figure out how to load the gun.
yeah.
His shot was bullshit. He didn't even take the final kill shot against the hell deer. It was her dad.
True. That's true. It's sort of like Chekhov's father, kind of, if you will. Like, we might speak about that in secondary, but it was set up that her father is versed in firearms, if you will.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it's funny because I was kind of wavering about this one. I think I may still be mostly on Ian's side, but Steve, you do make a good case. They're sort of like there just to be the protagonist in a horror film. And yeah, Nick's actor was not all that great, and Mary was certainly better. But like, it's fine at the end of the day. And like you said, like the script like calls for her to do that, like at points almost. I guess.
I have a question for you
kinda
guys.
tough.
So we all seem to agree that Mary did a fine job with this, and there's a lot of comedic moments to Nicholas's character. Whether it's him bumbling with a gun in the car, whether it's him trying to break into the school, and now would you? You kind of convinced me, Steve-O, because I was going back on analyzing, like almost all of his comedic moments fell flat.
There were some really good lines that he had that came off like shit because his delivery was so flat and garbage, and I guess that's why, like, he was fine. It was whatever. I don't give a shit about him. I was here to see Goldberg murder people, you know? Like,
would you have rather seen it, because he played it pretty straight.
Mm-hmm.
Now, would you have liked to see a more of a bumbling character?
No.
Or, like, how would this have, like, played it straight, but just a better actor?
Yes.
That's
exactly what I want.
Sure,
from that.
that'd be the optimal case. Here's how I would write it. It would have been a good subversion. Think this way, right? The setup is them as a couple, like a horror couple, you know, like the teenagers who are surviving. If Nick dies like a third through the film and then Mary becomes the protagonist alone, that might have been cooler.
You know who I think his character was supposed to be? Kurt Russell from Big Trouble in Little China.
That's what I was just thinking.
All right.
Sure.
Where he's not the protagonist, but this.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, he's not the protagonist. He's the sidekick, the like sidekick.
What I was going to say, but this whatever douchebag is no Kurt Russell.
All right, take it easy.
And that's
Kurt
and that's
Russell
the
is a
difference.
national treasure.
Yeah, nobody is Kurt Russell, but like, yeah, you're right. It's kind of tough. I want to give this movie credit, so I want to give him a 1, but does it deserve, like, if we agree.
Can you give it half of a 1 for Mary?
Well, it depends how I split it up, right?
No.
If they're 50-50.
What if we replace Nicholas with the Nutcracker gun?
Okay.
Then
same thing. Same movie.
No, Nutcracker Gun gets a 1 because it actually did something useful.
No, they need to replace Nicholas with Kurt Russell. They did
All right.
So,
Get a time machine, go back, get Kurt Russell when he's 16 years old, put him in his fucking movie.
This is all nonsense.
Or maybe Jay Baruchel.
I'm going to give it a 0.
I want to give it credit, so if I give them 50-50, I think it's just enough over the edge to give it the softest of 1s in this case, for me.
I think Mary carries it enough to give it a 1 for me.
All right.
You got the Mary Carey?
Mary,
Yeah.
you deserve a 1, but you dated a wet blanket, so I have to give you both a 0.
So you give it 0.
I still don't even know if they're dating.
Even they don't. Don't worry.
The script doesn't know.
But yeah, exactly. All right. Well, that'll bring us to secondary characters, supporting with Rich.
All right. So there was I think the only really secondary character of value was Grandpa.
Yes. He's the major one for sure.
It's like they set up the deli owner as if he was going to have a bigger part in the movie, but he didn't. And any of the other secondary characters showed up for the last 5 minutes of the film to have shooting practice and smoke cigarettes afterwards.
Well, that's basically so in sort of the same vein of Halloween-ish kind of things like that, or in horror-ish films in general. The townsfolk, like the random townsfolk are it. So, for example, the grandmother at the beginning, the old crotchety grandma, like, you old bitch, like that. And yeah, like this skeet shooting, group and all that. And the pastor, the corrupt, clergyman.
All the strippers.
The strippers, yeah. And like all the drunk townsfolk or whatever. So
I will say that every character except for the grandfather was literally just a joke.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In this movie.
Sure.
Which was fine by me.
The cops
There were a lot of
themselves,
funny jokes. There were a lot of Officer Cock.
Yeah.
What was the other name that you mentioned when you saw the guys?
Dick something. I don't remember his last name. It doesn't really matter. It's a joke though. It's stupid.
All the cops are dick jokes.
It's a toilet level humor.
The grandmother in this, or whatever, I don't know if she was actually a grandmother, but the old lady in this was just an asshole. And
Merry Christmas. Thank you. And go fuck yourself.
Fuck yourself. Every character except for the grandfather is just a joke.
I mean, you're right about that, but that's why I think it's good. That's
which
why
is fine.
Works.
There were a lot of good jokes. I mean, there was an entire family that was a joke in the beginning of the movie. You know, I really liked the secondary characters, and normally I look for a character that has like some kind of arc, but I didn't need it in this movie. What I needed was good jokes that came out of them, and that's exactly what they gave me.
Well, like Grandpa is like the bet. Like he's definitely a supporting character, but he's like sort of the catalyst and the impetus. And you're right, everyone else is basically a joke. But I think it was the joke worked the whole time. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the grandfather did a fine job with what he had. The town of hell. I'm going to give it as a broad character a 1 because it was filled with cliches for horror films that you want to see dead, and it worked for what it wanted to do.
Oh, one more. I will give the reindeer Also,
Oh yeah,
A1.
Oh,
the
yeah.
hell deer.
Yes.
Yeah.
The bison. That
Exactly.
nobody seems to call a
I don't
bison.
Whatever it is, it looked amazing.
Well,
it was funny design.
also-
and it made its own kills as well, which is excellent.
James Caan got second billing.
Yeah,
in
well,
the,
For
So,
some
he
reason.
would have because he's the
Secondary
biggest
characters
known
there,
name,
yeah.
but sure. But is that once for everybody for secondary?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Although I
maybe
feel
one.
like Grandpa dropped the ball a little bit by waiting until the day of the bet ending to warn his grandson.
Just roll with it. It's a mythology, like I said. All right, so that'll bring us to dialogue, and that'll be Steve-O.
The dialogue in this movie is just epic jokes and puns
Mhm.
and nonstop just throwing jokes
One-liners.
at you. Yeah, just one line. It's just everything about a horror movie that can be made fun of is made fun of in this, like at breakneck speed.
Mm.
And
It's rapid fire, yeah.
it's, I don't know. I love it. It's not like the greatest dialogue ever written, but it's just like my brand of humor done over and over and over and over
I
again.
do think the pun deliveries are amazing in this
Yeah.
movie because everybody just seems to take such pleasure.
yeah.
Actually-
they can't wait to fucking
Yeah.
say their pun line, whatever it's going to be.
If I may, I think that the way, like, so the cringeworthy lines in this movie might have been some of my favorite parts of it, because it's like that cringeworthiness, like,
No.
oh, they went like so far past the edge of insanity on this
That it
pun.
lats itself back.
Yeah.
If you during we were watching this movie, and I started going, ugh,
Yeah.
ugh, oh God, why they make that pun? You're like, this is the pun that broke you. I'm like, no, but this it built up to breaking me to the point where I was like, I want to punch the screenwriter and then shake
And
his hand.
Then they had one more just to hit you right in the kidney at the end,
See, it's
which
funny.
is my favorite pun of the entire movie.
Yeah, that's a good point. But it's funny. So to me, like, yes, normally I would hate this kind of stuff, but again, because of the nature of it, like the movie knows it. They're like lampshading the fact that they're using like terrible puns, essentially, right? Everyone who spits out a pun knows it, that's coming, and they're going to deliver it in such an epic way.
The title of this movie is a pun.
Yes.
You have to know what
Exactly.
you're getting
So, yeah.
into.
Yeah, it says what it's, on the tin, on the front cover, essentially. Sure. So, like, normally, again, I would dislike it, but because it knows it's cringeworthy and, like, is like, fuck you, we're doing it anyway,
It's-
and for a joke.
It's like a pig reveling in like its own
Yes.
slop. And
Yes, kind of.
it's just like, you must be like, that pig is having such a good time
Yeah.
that I kind of feel like I'm having a good time just watching
I
it.
want to be in there with him. Yeah, exactly. That's an amazing description. And I can't top it. I'm going to use that as my evidence for giving the dialogue a 1 in this.
For sure, I'm giving it a
So
one.
ones all around.
Yes. All right. And that'll bring me to style. So solid, perfectly fine. I mean, like, was it the Citizen Kane of Christmas horror films? I don't know what would be, but
I say yes.
if this is the only film in that genre, then perhaps. But I mean, it was directed fine. Like, there was nothing weird or odd or anything about the shots, and some of them looked like the town looked fine. And, like the menacing, they did the classic horror, like, where, Goldberg as Santa, like, is stalking through the hallways and things like that. Like, you see, like, bodies in the background,
Yeah.
like, his fight scenes, like, the way he kills people is great. So I don't know, like, other than that, and I'll leave soundtrack, probably to Steve-O and to you guys, but just, as a film shot and cinematography wise, perfectly fine, all good.
So, as a horror comedy, is it effective with its style? Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so.
Mhm.
I don't believe they reuse a kill
Yeah, you're right.
throughout
Good
this
point on
entire
that.
work, and there's a pretty high body count
Yes.
in this movie, and it's always in a Christmas theme manner or a wrestling manner.
Yes.
One or the other.
Yeah.
People die in absurd ways that shouldn't kill them, but they happen to fall upon like a sharp edge and like pierce. It knows what it is. It's reveling in the mud like a
Mhm.
pig. Its style is, this movie is exactly what it says on the tin, and it loves being the schlock that it is.
Yeah. Well, you want to go, Rich? I have a couple things I want to point out specifics of.
You go first.
All right. Well, I had two things I want to say. Scott, I will take the challenge of talking about the soundtrack because I think they did a really good job with the music in this.
Me too.
There's like this really strange mix of like classic Christmas music and like punk is Christmas music.
There's a rap song.
I was very
And-
surprised to see that these songs were actual real songs.
And, well, a few of them were made specifically for this movie.
Yeah.
I was actually watching the credits, and there was one guy that did all the music for this movie.
Okay.
And, like, every time his name showed up, I was like, oh, they made this movie.
Check out the
They made
soundtrack to this
song
film,
for this
sure.
movie.
Must have been the guy
But-
that was rapping.
But yeah, there were like a couple like punk songs in there. There was I forget what the rap song was, but like there was a rap song in there, and there was like this, and they all had this like strange Christmas feel to them, but somewhat a little bit off, which was good. And I had one other thing I wanted to mention, but if you want to say anything else about the soundtrack,
Yeah, just one thing. Like, yeah, when the credits were rolling, like what the songs were, and I don't remember what it was in the
Yes.
film, but one of the titles of the songs was called Fatal Dreidel. And like, I just lost my shit at that point. I was like, that is so goddamn amazing. I want to kind of look it up after the fact now, but yeah, that's all I want to say.
Hardcore Jewish metal band.
Yeah, exactly.
I also want to say that the music was often a kind of continuation of the joke that just happened.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
And
Good
so
point.
it tied very well. It was just not just
It wasn't just
Christmas
randomly
music.
inserted. Mhm.
It actually.
Right.
So anyway, yeah.
it did go very well. And I wanted to mention there's one shot that I fucking loved, and they did it a couple times in the movie. It's when Santa is flying through the air, and it's just a shot down over the head of the hell deer, which is a bison, and you just see the top of the bison's head, and then you see like the ground below. It looks so cheesy, but it's amazing.
But great
to
at
see
the
that,
same
like,
time.
like, animatronic bison head or whatever the hell it was.
So
However
it was
they got
taken
that
right
shot.
out of a
It
Never-Ending
was so
Story.
good.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. Or it felt like, you felt like you were like riding over the top of Appa from Avatar,
Sure.
Airbender. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's right. Agreed. And like, all right. One other quick little detail is that his sleigh was also like rocket propelled. So every
Yes.
now and again, like twice or so, he would like fly past something and light it on fire, like a Christmas tree, like lights up in its wake. So that was a nice touch as well.
Yeah.
All right. So is that ones for style for
One's all
everyone?
around.
Yes, it is.
I think.
All right.
yeah,
Damn
it's
right.
gonna be ones.
All right, and that will bring us back to recommendation. Go ahead, E.
If you have not seen this movie and love terrible horror films, watch this. You're gonna love this movie.
Not terrible, but B level.
I was expecting, like, when you guys told me about this movie, I was expecting it to be like a terrible, so bad it's good movie, and
Nah,
it actually
it's just
was an
good.
enjoyable.
Yes. So it's sort of in an odd way, not necessarily a Christmas tradition for us here, but we watch it occasionally as
I want to
Christmases
make it
go
one.
by.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is this. I totally recommend this.
Yes, most definitely would recommend this to anybody.
Yeah. I completely agree. If you haven't seen this movie yet, do yourself a favor. Put on some PJs, light some candles, get in the mood to laugh your ass off, and just put it on. It's fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. So yeah, like I said, jokingly, I sort of wanted to be tradition. So we earlier this month for Christmas, we had reviewed It's a Wonderful Life. Instead of A Wonderful Life, I wish channels would show Santa's Sleigh because it would be fucking awesome, and I would watch it. And yeah, like you're right, it's a fun little like just jokey kind of movie to sit down with your buddies, like have a couple Christmas drinks, have some eggnog or whatever,
Yeah,
and just watch it and enjoy it.
Else.
Yeah, some IPA winter, whatever you're gonna drink or whatever. I think it's a funny movie, and it's sort of like a bit lesser known, of course, but I think maybe it should become sort of like your if not family, your friends' Christmas tradition. Hey man, after Christmas is over, let's go watch Santa's Sleigh and have a good time with it. So that's all I got to say. I definitely recommend it. All right, and the scores are in. So let's
give
go
it
to
the
E.
scores. So Scott and Rich both give it a 9, and Steve-O and myself gave it an 8, giving it an overall score of an 8.5.
All right, damn right. I mean,
Very appropriate.
yeah, exactly. For what it is, I think it holds up very well, and maybe we can sort of spread the word of how amusing and
Spread the Christmas joy.
exactly spread the Christmas joy and the Christmas murder as well with Santa's Sleigh. So I think that'll do it for this episode. I, of course, have been Scott Thurlow, joined by Jonathan Ian Manzer,
Good night and stay safe.
Rich Perry.
Don't let this Christmas scare the dickens out of you.
Yes, awesome. And Stephen Amosi.
Have a good night.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animals. See you next time. This has been Bon Mots. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. Music by Chris Morgan.
Editing and engineering by Scott Thurlow.
This has been a Los Angeles production. All rights reserved.